What is up, ladies and gents? Welcome to the Bullpen, a show that features debates that don't take 2.5 hours. Is that not good enough? Should I do another one? Welcome to the Bullpen, a show that probably won't bring up Hitler. You want me to keep doing it? I got plenty. There's a lot of shit going on in this world. Let's be very clear about a few things about what we're good at here and not great at in MMA and Jiu-Jitsu. What we do here, we have panel discussions on the widest range of topics possible. And we're happy to have these discussions. But it looked like this week, people were trying to infringe upon our territory. I would say with some negative results. Nonetheless, welcome, the Bullpen, a joint venture between the Grappling Hour and Inside BJJ. And here, also not bringing up Hitler, is one Tim Freeman. Tim, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. He is the last person I will bring up. I can guarantee that. There's a fine art to talking smack, especially talking smack on the internet. You got to leave it to the professionals, guys like myself, guys like Raf, and guys like our co-host, Kevin Sherrill. It's great to be here, Raf. I'm stoked to be back one more time.
Well, we're glad to have you here, and let's jump to our third co-host, someone who says he's done all of his own research. One, Kevin Sherrill. Kevin, what has the research told you, sir?
Yeah, I haven't come to a conclusion about the shape of the Earth, but I can tell you this: it's not round.
You know, okay. Hey, listen, we're just throwing out.
That's what YouTube told me. It's what YouTube told me. I've cleaned out YouTube. I'm not so
sorry.
Certain what shape it is, but it's definitely not round.
See, these ears are very sharp. Your diction and syntax made it seem like you were saying, you too showed me. And I was like, don't put that on me. Whatever you're doing, don't put that shit on
RAF ESPARZA.
I was checking my texts. I'm like, oh, I did tell him that. That's right. Sorry, Kev.
What people don't know is literally just a few seconds ago, before we went live on the air, there was like a mini pro-me diatribe I went on. This doesn't happen a ton on this show, but I felt I was within my right to take some credit for something. So when you're like, you two showed me this, I was like, no, don't break.
Immediately throw you under the bus the second we're live.
Yeah, no, please don't do that. Well, gentlemen, formalities aside, listen, we're a certain way for the board, but it appears that the community has too much energy and a response that we will go out of order here. And when you see the order, you may understand why. So I'm going to go ahead and go. Yeah, let's do the one you probably want to talk about. Tim titled this one Three-Way. I don't love it, but it is what it is. Nonetheless, if you guys...
Who's the unicorn?
Who's the unicorn here?
Who's the unicorn? Not that I know anything about that, but who's the unicorn?
Oh, God damn it. Okay,
who's the third?
We're losing topics here, Kevin. I want to give you time to respond to this. In fact, I'm putting the clock back on because we're trying to race through this episode. But here we go. On, what was it, Wednesday of this week, there was a so-called debate between Tom DeBlas and Dan on one side and Greg Souders on the other side. Now, why they needed three people to do a debate, uncertain. But they were looking for moderators and ended up with themselves. At some points, it did seem like people thought that Big Dan was moderating. Sure didn't look that way. And especially when they were looking for somebody who didn't have any sort of bias. So they had people who could have been moderators, and yet they ended up with none. I'm going to let both of our gentlemen here take a stab at telling us how that went from their opinion and just some other observations. And for that, I'm actually resetting the clock again. And, you know, I know Kevin is chomping at the bit to feel his feels on this one because we definitely had discussion during the pre-show. Kevin, what were your thoughts of that debate?
So I watched 20 minutes of it. I watched almost exactly, I think it's 20 minutes and a couple of seconds. I got through 20 minutes of it, and on 6 different occasions, someone asked someone else to outline their position. I said, all right, Greg to Big Dan. Greg asked Big Dan, hey, what do you think my position is? Can you define constraints-led approach to me. Can you? And then Tom asked Greg his position twice. Greg asked someone their position twice. He asked Tom his position. Nobody actually answered. Big Dan got the closest where he started to define constraints-led approach, and Greg interrupted him twice. So we never actually got an answer. Nobody answered any questions. The fact that they came into a debate going, okay, what are we actually arguing about? What's your position? What do you think my position is? Nah, you're wrong. It's not actually my position. And then never outlines his own position was incredibly frustrating. After the 6th time it happened, I turned the debate off. I said, this is a waste of my time. This is a waste of everybody else's time. This is not actually about the merit of these ideologies and these methods. This is just a bunch of people measuring their egos. This is Tom. This is Greg. I'm not going to throw Big Dan under the bus because he didn't seem like he actually I think once he seemed like in 20 minutes that when he realized it wasn't going to be a productive discussion, he kind of backed off, had his little drink, and was sipping on it. But at least with Tom and Greg, this was just egos. That's all it was. It was them two coming in going, Tom saying, he even says it at one point, I didn't like how you seem to come at Danaher and my guys and our DVDs and that. And I was like, cool, that has nothing to do with constraints-led approach at all. And it's Greg is sitting there and all he seemed to want to do was to let Tom know that, because he didn't outline his own position. He's not championing the value of constraints-led approach. In 20 minutes, he never once talked about what he supposedly believes, which is this is the best way to train. He didn't actually outline that for anyone. He wasn't using the platform to help people. He just wanted to make Tom look dumb and tell the internet how smart he is. Incredibly frustrating. Incredibly frustrating. I turned it off.
Thank you for that. Tim, can you do me a favor? Can you outline my perspective on what I was thinking about that debate?
I'm almost certain you were thinking it was a gigantic waste of time, and at the same time you might have dislocated your shoulder patting yourself on the back for training two goons who are on the bullpen with you.
Stop. Full stop. Full stop, Tim. Full stop. Okay. When I respond to this, I want to let you know first we have to define what goons are. So we can't just talk about two goons.
The nature.
Listen, hey, both of you, shut up, guys. I've done the research here, okay? So full stop. And
listen, I don't know if you've seen the books.
What two goons do a show willingly.
But have you ever gooned?
But I guess the question is, when you goon, do you immerse yourself in the goon culture, or hear me out, do you just keep arguing with no direction? And
these are mutually exclusive, opposing methodologies.
Absolutely.
And we have to acknowledge that. Tim, I've got a number I'm thinking of in my head. Would you like to? I'd like you to guess it.
Well, I like the fact that
no,
you're
that's
thinking
not
of
it.
a
That's
number.
not it. I thought you would think that. If you'd like me to explain to you what number it was, I can do that for you. But for now, I won't be.
Tim, here's your time. What was your thoughts overall on the debate, sir?
I like to watch things like that other than the debate. Like, I'm not tuning in to hear these guys settle anything. I'm tuning in to see the many personalities of Tom DeBlas. I would rather see Tom DeBlas debate himself. And I love Tom DeBlas. I'm a big Tom DeBlas guy. I want to see Mean Streets Tom DeBlas debate emotionally unstable Tom DeBlas. Also, because this is a three-way debate, I'm going to need to see I Love Jesus Tom DeBlas. And I want all three of I can get more out of hearing those him debate with himself. I could shake a magic 8-ball and get the answer to this in about 3 seconds. I don't need to see three goons on the internet talking about, they're basically shooting shit. That's what they were doing. This was the modern day version of the Wrong Guys, man. It was just not that great of a situation. And I don't think we need to debate this. I think there's jiu-jitsu doesn't need debates, man. Let's just roll and have fun. That's the whole point.
You bring up a good point, except for this. We need to argue about everything in jiu-jitsu. Like, what you do is offensive to me. Like, if you don't train the right way, I need to tell you something. I need to tell you how I feel about that. That's essentially what this came down to. Can I just present my very quick thoughts on this? Because here's what I kind of took away from this debate. First of all, don't call it a debate. That, like, right out the window. Nobody's winning this. Because you're showing up to something where people have deep-seated beliefs, and there was no structure to it that allowed for argumentation or response time or even for elaborating points. What I'm disappointed with here is what you're trying to do is over justify what it is that you like and enjoy and have found success with. And let me summarize the points here. I think that a lot of people see, and there's an emergingness of seeing Greg's approach become embraced by people who may have drilled for a long period of time. Why else is Johnny Grippo or the Rotolos starting to find some kind of kinship with this training? It might be that they were so in deep with drilling, they now are at a place where they can freely train how they want to. That was something that Jason Nolf actually put in the comment section. He said, why not learn drilling and then just start to play games as you get more experience? I think that's a fair point. Clearly, that was not expressed. What you have on the other side is a definition of the status quo. Well, drillings work for all these people because Hodger. Bam. Hashtag Hodger. Like, the weird part of this is it's appealing to these guys who are high level right now. I think there may be something more to it. So really what we're not trying to do is debate its merits per se or who's right or wrong. You might just be trying to articulate why people have alternatives to what it is that they currently know. It occurred to me when they had no moderator, this was going to be the inmates running the asylum. And that's what it felt like. Having said that, is there a possibility a debater or a moderator could have helped? I think there was a few people who were enlisted, not even myself. And granted, would have done it. I also didn't want to audition for it and try to tell you why I think I'm worthy for it. Like, just ask me to do it, I'll do it. And if you don't want me to do it, there were a lot of people on there who I thought could have been just fine, including our good friend, the commish of PGF, Brandon McCatherine. He seemed really eager to do it. And at least he would have tried to get to the actual point of the whole thing. But I want to kind of circle to this. I actually think this works better as a series of individual interviews to get a better articulated point for Greg Saunders, because I feel like some people think that they are over intellectualizing jiu-jitsu and they have feelings about that. On the other side, for Tom DeBlass, I think their perspective is these people have won, but the question I have is what happens when those people don't win, or to the extent that maybe an emerging new approach starts to get more champions, or people who are very good at jiu-jitsu that we all agree, like the Rotolos and Johnny Grippo, who are starting to have success with it. Will that mean their argument goes away entirely? These are questions that I had, and none of them were answered. And I felt like you felt, which was a lot of people just got in the comment section to make fun of the other side, which is going to happen. But having said that, don't call it a debate. Everybody chill the fuck out. And if you need to train jiu-jitsu, train how you like. I just don't think this debate is going anywhere anytime soon. I think people are going to be in the comment sections for, oh boy, a long time. I don't think it's going to stop. So anyway, that's my thoughts on it. All right, gentlemen, let's very quickly take this element. We just debated, if you would, the merits of the debate. But I feel like there's a better way we could potentially show people or demonstrate. If only there was a segment we had on the show where we do a thing. What do we have a segment like that, Tim?
Yeah, I think we do. I think I know where this is going. We do have a segment like that. We need to take
stop. Do you think, or do we know we have a segment? I need you to define. I need a definitive answer from you.
Kevin, I don't know what you mean by define. Can you define, please?
Can you define for me? Let's talk about the nature of information.
All right, that's good enough. Let's go to our debate. What we're witnessing is real. The participants are not actors. They are not skilled enough to be actors. They are actual hosts litigating on behalf of the athletes and the audience of the PGF at an undisclosed underground court in Las Vegas, in LA. Both parties have agreed to dismiss the internet and settle their disputes here at Bullpen Court. Hey, The timing on that was a little bit better. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to a segment we like to call Bullpen Court, where today these two gentlemen will actually try to have the debate of eco-ness versus drilling. Starting us off today is going to be the returning champ. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to go with Tim first. Tim, you were going to lead us off here. Last time, if people remember correctly, Kevin won. A lot riding on this. But I'm going to ask you, Tim, which is the better approach? The ecological form of jiu-jitsu or the drilling form? We start with you. Time is going to be on the clock. You have 1 minute.
Thank you, most honorable Esparza. You look very good today. I just want to throw that out there. You look very nice. Your glasses, your hair, everything looks put together.
Thank you.
Kevin. Listen, I am a big proponent of ecological jiu-jitsu. The main thing that I want to stress is that ecological jiu-jitsu allows you to discover how your body does the moves without to do it a particular way. So you get to discover how it works for you. If you have a problem, then you can bring that problem to your coach and go, hey, every time I do this, this happens. And then your coach can go, hey, try it this other way instead. Oh, great. I'll never forget that because I had a problem you solved. If you teach a strict drilling methodology, you're teaching solutions to problems that students don't know they have yet, and so they don't remember the solution. They continue to bastardize, for lack of another word, the technique when they actually do it. Ecological allows them a path to discover the technique on their own terms, in their own way. Hence, it's not forgotten, but it's kept and it's part of their jiu-jitsu. And then if they have future problems, they can be refined later.
Thank you for that, Tim. We appreciate your opening statement and noted for the official record. Thank you. Kevin, what is your response on to this? Your opening statement begins now.
Yeah, I'm championing traditional training methodologies. The primary difference between traditional training methodologies and a constraints-led approach, or the ecological approach, is the value of drilling and whether drilling has any value. They both have live rounds. They both have situationals. We all agree that those things have value, right? It's about drilling. Static drilling is extremely valuable. You see it at the highest levels of every major money sport. You see baseball players putting time in the cage. You see basketball players, they talked about this in the debate, getting there an hour before to get shots up, going ahead and getting regular, static, stable, not against any sort of disruption or whatever, to get in a rhythm. And then they move into more complex drills. Stable set, you see boxers do shadow boxing, they hit bags. This is something we've done always, and you either have to believe that all of those people are wrong or that they do something with like they have found success and they find value in that.
Okay, thank you for that. We're going to go ahead and start right now with cross-examination. To begin, Kevin Sherrill, you will argue and take the cross-examination time to break down Tim's arguments. Kevin?
Tim, do you believe
Constraints-based.
So if our constraints were simply that you should drill this knee cut, and I'm constraining you to the knee cut that I showed you, do you think you would get good at that knee cut if you put time in?
Are you saying that drilling is constraints-based?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying that constraints-based is the way then? You just said ecological was
I'm saying that
constraint-based, and now you
everything
said
has
drilling
constraints.
is
If we're just
constraint-based.
defining ecological as it has constraints, then driving on the highway is ecological.
Well,
I'm
you
talking about a
defined
training methodology. Listen, getting repetitions has value. Do you believe that getting shots up before a game in basketball, do you believe that warming up with shadow boxing, those things are foolish? Yes or no?
No, I do not. I'd be happy to
agree.
tell you why.
Perfect. We're in great agreement.
All right. Tim, you now have rebuttal time.
Kevin, would you say that constraints are something that you can apply and take off? Perfect. So if I say, here's the constraint, bottom player can only do one thing, top player can only do one thing, that lends itself to ecological jujitsu, or to fall under that label, for lack of a better word. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
So then if I give you more constraints and I go, hey, there's actually 14 constraints for the bottom guy and 23 for the top guy, and now it performs like a static drill, would you still say that that's constraint-based jiu-jitsu?
I'm not sure. I genuinely, I'm not sure, depending on the constraints.
Do you believe that you can only drill and then get on the mat and be a good grappler?
Hell no.
Okay.
That's my time.
Tim, you now get to do a closing statement. You have 2 minutes, or I'm sorry, 1 minute and 5 seconds on the clock. Go.
Thank you. I think it's quite obvious right now that drilling is really just a form of constraints-based jiu-jitsu. It just has a lot of constraints. And if you accept that, as does my opponent, Kevin, who also labeled constraints-based jiu-jitsu as ecological jiu-jitsu, then it's mostly all ecological jiu-jitsu with a tightening or a loosening of the constraints. Drilling in and of itself is helpful because it is constraints-based, but it's not enough, as Kevin mentioned, to actually make you a good grappler. You have to relax the constraints and compete or practice with somebody with relaxed constraints to get a real life scenario of what it's like to grapple. That's what everybody does when we roll. We have very few constraints. So we're all doing constraints-based ecological jiu-jitsu already. I think the people can see that ecological is the way to go, and pure drilling will not get you where you need to be in terms of being a grappler. It's just one little small piece on the spectrum of constraints-based ecological jiu-jitsu.
Thank you for that.
I rest
Tim.
my case, Your Honor.
Thank you. We appreciate that clarity. We now go to you, Kevin, for your closing statement.
Yeah, I totally agree that drilling is not enough to get you to an elite level. However, when we started the argument, we talked about ecological being opposed to drilling. The missing component is whether we all do live, we all have situationals or games or constraints-based games or whatever you want to call it. It's static drilling, the value of static drilling and the value of thorough conversation about concepts are the two things in the ecological approach that are seen as not having value. My point is that they do have value. Static drilling will get you to a certain point. If you're trying to start out in jiu-jitsu, if you're advanced, you can kind of be shown a move. You can figure out how to hit it live, maybe against that white belt, that blue belt, that more predictable roll. You can create the situation. But even complex maneuvers, it does help to rep it without resistance initially. This happens at the highest level. There's very few people that can be shown something for the first time ever and get the most value out of it. You need drilling. It's a fundamental part. It doesn't have to be the largest part. You can vary the value of it, but you need it.
Thank you for that, gentlemen. Well, we appreciate both of your kind words and your argumentation. I like the idea that you were able to elaborate a point, but I want to get to my ruling very quickly. We have broken new ground here on the show. One, the amount of jokes that happened in this show was alarmingly low for this episode. Now, I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's because you saw some other stuff this week and you said, well, maybe if we try it for reals, we should try to argue and show people how it should be done. But it did throw me off because it was legitimately me being like, when I have to flow your arguments, I sit there and go, oh, let's figure this out. What is Tim saying? Oh, he's making jokes. That's not a point. Okay, that's an example. That's not quite the thesis. It takes me a second. This one was you guys both being like, hello, my name is Tim Freeman. I will be the main point today. A. B. example of main point. And I thought, where the fuck did these guys come from? So it definitely was jarring to watch this debate. And I have to say this. We're breaking new ground in that, gentlemen, you both won. And here's why. It's because the two of you together actually beat the 2.5-hour debate that happened between Greg Saunders, Tom DeBlass, and Big Dan. Because I watched it for a too long period, and I still have no idea what any of them were arguing. So because of that, you showed it how it could be done in 9 minutes. Congratulations to the both of you, gentlemen.
Hey, congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's go.
So we could say that technically our debate beat their debate.
Yeah.
They didn't know they were debating our debate, but our debate beat their debate.
I mean, we both won. They lost.
Okay. Got it. That's all I wanted.
That's what RAF just awarded us. We collectively beat them.
We collect. And me as the judge, I also won, which is very
We had a
unusual.
Moderator. Solid W.
Yeah. Because there was structure to it, and then at the end of it, you guys weren't trying to kill each other. At the end of this, Kevin is not going to have to send a text to Tim being like, "Hey man, I just want to let you know I really respect you, bro. Even though it may seem like on the show I don't respect you all that much, we can have differing opinions." And I think that's the weirdest part of this whole thing is, at the very end of it, they put up this post, they co-author it, and they say, "Hey guys, just so you know, we said this to each other." And I thought, okay, sounds good. So did we do all of that for no reason? Are people arguing online for no reason? It just feels like inciting a mob to then say like, "Mob, chill. Daddy, chill." So anyway, there is that. All right, let's do this. Kevin, you need to get out of here, I am told. Yeah. We'll let you get on out that way. Do us a solid. Say hello to our good friend Chris Wojcik, and Godspeed to your ankles.
I want to make him and Paul Ardia bring their grappling hour shirts to Chris's seminar tomorrow. We need to get that picture. Hey. Yeah. Peace, guys. Great work. Dude.
We'll talk to you.
Make sure you shout out for GFL. There's a little GFL one. Make sure you shout out Douglas Lima's in that. They signed him.
Diego's in it, right?
Douglas.
Doug's
Douglas.
Okay.
Douglas.
I thought I saw Diego, but also I'm getting to an advanced age. So thank you for that, sir. Appreciate it.
Peace, guys.
Later.
All right, Tim, we're going to take a second here to just recalibrate the board. All of you guys, empty board here, but fear not, you will see the main board coming in 3, 2, even before promised here. And as we do this, we did get a couple comments, and the first comment I want to kind of shape back to was this. Egg, wow, I missed the 3-way. Seems to always happen to me.
That'd be a funny bit about a
Tim,
guy who...
do you see why I had resistance to that one name for this? Because you get stuff like this. You put it out there into the internet, and then this is what happens. So I blame you for this one, sir.
I would argue, now that I'm in debate mode, that this is actually better. I think it's actually good.
Oh, for sure it's not better. And this is not a matter of taste. This is a matter of, you cannot look at this and think to me that this, you know what, you can't argue my point for me like other people have tried. You can't be like, Raph, I'm pretty sure. How do you feel about this? Yeah, I knew that's wrong. So what I'm saying to you is this. I don't know that this is 100% the comment I wanted to be our gold standard, but nonetheless, Wallow J said he watched 1 minute and 57 seconds of it and went back to watching The Golden Girls, which honestly, obviously a classic, amazing show. It was not the show I thought you were going to drop in as a reference here. And it says, if you lob it up, we have to knock it out of the park. See, Tim, the lemmings are telling you, you led them off the cliff. This was you.
I know.
All right.
It's good, man. It's good.
Earlier,
when I wrote that topic down, I really wanted to slip it in. I'm like, I hope Raph doesn't catch this. And you caught it. You just already had peppered the board, and it was a little too late to pull it back. So I snuck one in under the wire.
The worst part is we were under a little bit of a time deadline, if you would, and I was like, shit, I already put it in. It's in. Like, I have certain codes and rules that I have to follow where I'm like, nope, it's there, so we got to go. Let's start with this. Tim, you tell me what exactly took place, because I think I saw on the internet, and it didn't really strike out to me, but it is something that is worthy and worth noting that happened at Pit Submission, sir.
So we had Pit Submissions 11 that took place in Miami as part of the Karate Combat promotion. And it had a few guys on the card, but really the big thing that jumped out was Daniel Sattler was featured, I believe, in the first grappling match of the event against Ansar Kamzov. And it was a decent match. I thought Sattler won the match. Some people think that Kamzov won. Kamzov had some good takedowns against the pit wall, but Sattler's such a dynamic grappler. He was the guy that was pushing the submissions, pushing the action. I sent you a picture of the standing crucifix that he had Kamzov in. It was a fun match to watch. After the match, Sattler, who is a very emotional fighter, he's very engaged, he's high energy. He's not going to let anything slide, especially if there's some shit talking going on. And I could see in watching it, he started putting his chin up, like, go ahead, take your shot, take your shot. And Kamzov's coach comes from around the side, and this big ass hand comes through and bam, takes a whack at Sattler. And it just grazed him a little. Sattler did a little Philly shell move and kind of rolled with it and didn't take the full brunt of it. And then the ref jumped in and was like, no, can't do that here. This is karate. We don't hit each other. So I thought it was interesting. I thought it was made for some good TV in terms of watching a submission match, which often turns out kind of boring. You know what I'm saying? In other matches there, Fabricio Andre lost to Samuel Nakai. That match went the distance. And then we saw Lance Palmer edge out Richie Lewis. They had 3 grappling matches on the card. Entertaining stuff. The pit does make for an entertaining match. Even better when somebody tries to slap somebody after the match.
You know, I oddly saw the headline for the slap and not anything about the match. It was just literally like, oh, did you see they kind of slapped each other? And I go, oh, was the rest of the match not cool? Or like, what are we talking about here? Like, it literally was just like a match happened, but slap. And I thought, oh, was it good? So I'm glad to get a better account of it, because honestly, they seem to enjoy that over on that side. And to their credit, they fucking shut that shit down fairly quick, but they'll let them go right to the edge. Like, they're looking like Will Ferrell playing Ric Flair on Eastbound and Down, and basically telling like, oh, I feel it in my plums. And I go, yeah, like they let it go up to a certain point, and then they go, nah, you guys stop it. But you can get 1 or 2 hits in, and that's about it. So it did occur to me though, like Daniel, every time I've talked to him, very chill, super nice, very polite at PGF with us. But you figure he got into that altercation with Max. Then there's this. I was just like, yo, I don't know how this happens with him. It's definitely an intense sort of a thing. But I'm like, the kid's super nice to me. I don't know to see it. I don't know why. And part of me is wondering if it's kind of like, if that's the case, even if somebody like him is doing it, is there almost more of an incentive of like, hey, if you got a problem, the pit is the place to go to settle it right then and there. I came in a bad mood. It is time for me to slap somebody today. So I'm trying to get my bearings on that. And I wasn't sure if I was alone in that form of thinking.
No, I think you hit it. I think you hit it head on. And, you know, Sattler's a very nice guy off the mats. I've never rolled. I'm sure he's friendly if you're just doing regular training. Competition wise, though, he's pretty intense. That might be something that he has to rein in, because if you're an opponent, you might be able to use that against him. But we'll see how he develops. He's a young guy, super dynamic, super fun. So
fair enough. Let's move to our next topic, which is going to be PGF Season 8. Tim, there was, I believe, a new qualifier that happened. What can you tell us about the latest developments in the PGF for season number 8, sir?
So, just a couple things. One is we know Jet Thompson's going to be on season 8, and he's got a decent amount of weight he's going to have to drop. I don't know how the kid's going to do it, but he's going to have to drop some weight to get to that 155 mark. The other name that has kind of floated out there, hasn't been officially announced, but it is out, is Gianni Grippo. He's, a perennial competitor, very, very good student out of the East Coast, traveled all over, just done all kinds of competitions, super, super competent grappler. It will be very interesting to see him in the PGF format. I'm hearing, I have no confirmation on this. This is all unconfirmed, just things that I've heard, but I'm hearing that there may be some potential modifications that could impact draft day, in making draft day a much more, it's already an important event. It shapes the composition of your team, but the ramifications of the draft may be a lot more impactful moving forward. So we'll see what comes out of that. I'm not positive, but I'm hearing rumblings about this. I'm also hearing some rumblings about potentially having another mechanism to reward the athletes when they do something. I don't know how that would actually work out. I have no idea. These are just some ideas that I've heard are being kicked around. Again, it's all unconfirmed stuff, but I will say this. One thing you can expect out of the PGF is that they are going to continue to modify their format and the things that they do. And when they do it, they're leaning towards entertainment. They're leaning away from this has to be a pure representation of the sport. And they're leaning towards this has to be fun to watch. It has to be exciting. It has to get the athletes pumped up and produce and create a great show. So any modifications they can make moving in that direction, I would expect them to pull the trigger on it and make it happen. I'm pumped for season 8. It's coming up real soon, man. So I can't wait.
Thank you for that. We kind of know some stuff that we're not at liberty to disclose. They are state secrets. I have not brought them to my house as declassified yet. I may. But having said that, Tim, the stuff that we do know, and we don't even know all of it, is very exciting. And when you talk about the entertaining aspect, I think that's the part that people don't associate with this yet. A lot of times people are trying to gamify rules, and it sounds like they're taking very, very serious extent to make sure that it is done for the people at home to be entertained and to enjoy this product. So if that's maybe a little bit of a direction that we can give you, a lot of those things have already taken place. But what I'm telling you is gameplay may change a little bit in terms of what you feel you've seen before and what may be down the line. So if there's any hint I can give you, I feel like that's the one. Speaking of things that are happening all around the world, Tim, there's also a GFL, as if there's not enough stuff going on in this world. Dana White this week was saying that the GFL is not of concern to him, which is oddly the weirdest shit I have ever heard Dana White talk about with another organization. Normally, it's you bring it up, it's like, what do you think of PFL? Yeah, a piece of shit over there? That fucking shit's dumb. I fucking hate that. As opposed to the GFL, yeah, okay, I don't see him as competition. I think it's great. It may be the one time that we are seeing a true retirement division, a master's division for our favorite fighters, and maybe with a few sprinkled in young guns. But the average age, last time I checked, was somewhere in the region of about 44 to 46 years old. And having said that, Tim, what can you tell us about the GFL and what should we be keeping an eye out for, sir?
Listen, I think there's a huge market to see these retired, let's say retired. Maybe they're not quite at the point where you want to see them in the UFC, but they still have a lot of mileage available to them, and there's still compelling, exciting matchups to watch. Big names. These guys didn't just sign one or two big names or like, oh, okay, they got this guy. They got a whole roster of big names. Just to read a few right off the top, Alan Belcher, Alexei Olnik, Fabricio Verdum, Andre Arlovsky, Frank Mir, Greg Hardy. These are all stars. These guys are stars. They didn't just get retired bums. Oh, yeah, you were 3-5 in your MMA career. We're going to sign you for GFL. They got bona fide champions in this league. I'm super excited to see it. They're going to present it in a team format. I believe there's 6 teams in different cities. They're going to have a tournament structure that works down into a quarterfinal, semifinal, finals style matchup for these guys. They're going to cover their medical insurance. They're paying the athletes. It seems like a good fit for athletes who still want to continue to fight at the caliber required in the UFC. It's also a good opportunity for young guys who maybe get overlooked by a big organization to come through and have some matches against these tough guys. Yeah, they're a little bit older, but they're still tough as hell, and you could still learn a lot from it. So I think it's a great format. I think it's a great idea. I think it's going to be highly entertaining, and I think it's going to be a hit. I think it's going to be a bigger hit than what people think it's going to be.
I mean, I'm hoping for it. I just have to say how I feel about this small aspect of it. I feel slightly betrayed, and let me explain why. Tony Ferguson should be retired, not retired in the GFL. Chris Weidman said he was retiring. But from the UFC. He's there. Clay Guida in the GFL. So I keep hearing all these names where we had this whole pomp and circumstance of like, oh my God, thank God these guys. We love you. You're legends. Enjoy. Happy retirement into another organization. You're back. Yay. It didn't matter. What we did was bullshit. And I know that sometimes comes down to contractual things. I know sometimes it's the right time, opportunity. It's just with Tony Ferguson, especially in particular. I don't know that I want him fighting anymore. I have not felt good watching him fight. I am not in charge of him. I have no say whether he fights. I understand all of these things. Nonetheless, I don't feel good watching him fight. And I can't get away from that element. So for me to say these things, and for you, do you not feel somewhat in the same way, Tim?
Yeah, I do. I love Tony Ferguson, and I don't want to see him fight because I don't think it's good for his health. It's not because I don't think he can fight or he's not tough. He was one of my favorite fighters to watch. But there are some athletes who, out of concern for their health and their future health, should probably step away from the sport altogether. Now, maybe the GFL is an off-ramp for some of these guys to help ease them into retirement. I think it is extremely, it's like the rest home for MMA athletes. It's boy. Hospice. Look, I don't know what else to say. These guys, they can't turn it off. They're not like regular people where you're like, now you're retired and go sit at home all day. They can't do it. They miss the war too much. They want to go back. If they can't even go to a UFC event and watch a homie compete, they miss the war too much. They want to get in the cage and fight. They get the itch. So maybe something like the GFL is a way we can step them down into retirement, protect their health a little bit. Maybe we make them wear headgear. I don't know, man. I'm with you, though. There are some guys I definitely do not want to see fight just because I care about them as human beings. But at the same time, it's hard for them to turn it off. So I understand why they do it.
Okay. Well, listen, I have to express that. Having said that, I root for new organizations and opportunities for our friends. We have a lot of friends who did get opportunities with that. I don't quite understand the regional aspect. Like, most of the people who got drafted just already kind of live in those destinations. So it got kind of weird when you're like, and the LA team, I was like, I think they mostly all live here or can very easily get here. And they're like, and the Europe team. And I was like, let me guess. They live there too. Oh, and the Brazil team. Oh, look at that. So I didn't know quite why we had to do a formalized draft. You should have just already had those people. Like, you Brazil, come here. I wanted to bring up one other thing with the GFL, which is I don't quite understand where we're seeing it yet in terms of where it will air. So there's a lot of questions I have that I know will come in time, but I am slightly nervous because not announcing a TV partnership is a big way to send a signal like, do I have to pay for this? Because I don't want to pay for it. And if I mean I have to pay for it, is my cable paying for it? Or do I have to do like a pay-per-view per event? Because that sounds not enticing. Nonetheless, we will find out as we go. And I have even further feelings on it, but I do want to move and go to our next topic. So I'll go ahead and bring this up to you. But Tim, we have a friend. His name is Brian Peterson. If you guys ever see any of the clips for the Grappling Hour or even for this show, he does an excellent job of cutting those clips. And every year, around the time the Royal Rumble happens, he actually does a PowerPoint presentation. I kid you not, to bring civilians up to the world of professional wrestling so that they can understand what is going on. So he said, his words, not mine, hey, do you guys need some sort of information about the Royal Rumble? And I said, I don't know in particular. And he goes, oops, I've already made one. So as a result of that, he has sent this video to us. I have not proofed it. I do not know what the contents of it are, but nonetheless, we are playing it, and Godspeed. So let us see what Brian Peterson has to inform the rest of you, civilians or the uneducated, about tomorrow night's Royal Rumble.
Chief Assistant Director of Social Media and Marketing for Grappling Hour. I do have a BJJ black belt as well as a replica WWE uniquely qualified. Pitch is why we absolutely need a Royal Rumble in Jiu-Jitsu. So you might be wondering, why do we even need a Royal Rumble? Isn't grappling doing great? And I'm here to tell you that we can take it to the next level using a technique that we've used for years. If you look at events in the past like Finishers Money in the Bank, taking inspiration from WWE Money in the Bank, or the ever-popular Quintet looking just like a Survivor Series match, we've been taking gimmicks from pro wrestling for years. And if we're going to do that, we should take the gimmick, the Royal Rumble. Okay, so you might be thinking, what even is a Royal Rumble? Basically, it's a match where you have 30 competitors. They each come out to the ring at separate times. You're going to eliminate people by throwing them out of the ring, and the last one there is getting qualified for a main event title shot at the biggest event of the year, WrestleMania. Now, there's a lot of similarities between that and what we already have in Jiu-Jitsu. Both ADCC and the PJF have qualifiers. They already actively encourage throwing people off the mat, and they both have a main event show that everyone's trying to get to, essentially making ADCC Worlds akin to WrestleMania. The only difference is that WrestleMania, isn't being bankrolled by money from the Middle East. So you might be thinking, are grappling fans really ready to accept a Royal Rumble rule set into the culture? And I think that the sport is really heading in the direction that rewards a lot of the staples of the Royal Rumble event. For example, we have returning legends coming back from out of nowhere to showcase their skills like they never missed a beat. We have an encouragement to throw our opponent off of the legal competition area. And of course, a staple of both the Royal Rumble and Jiu-Jitsu events is unexpected catastrophic leg injuries. Honestly, I'm surprised we haven't had a Royal Rumble event already. Okay, so let's say that we do have this event. Who's going to be in this? Who's going to win? Well, I think we need to look at the favorites for the Men's Royal Rumble this weekend to kind of get an idea of what types of people are going to be here. Starting off, maybe you've heard of him. His name is John Cena. We all know him as an aging freestyle rapper, so that's a start. Seth Rollins is the second favorite. He's a Midwest hippie if I've ever seen one. Maybe the most accomplished grappler of the bunch, CM Punk, a Master 4 blue belt and former UFC fighter. And finally, we have Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, a noted MMA impersonator. And I think if we take all of these archetypes together, we're really looking at every blue belt line at every gym I've ever trained at. So I think the odds of getting some professional grapplers in here is pretty good. But Brian, what about a women's division? Well, it's jiu-jitsu, so I'm sure we'll get there in about 10 to 15 years. So that brings me to my big question. Who do you think from the grappling world is going to dominate a jiu-jitsu Royal Rumble? Thanks for having me.
I just had an interview with the CEO of Handsomeness, and they
The fact that the call out still lives is my favorite thing. We'll have to return that. Did we tell Kevin that Ben challenged him? I didn't remember if we did officially do that.
I don't think we did.
Because he didn't show up. So I was like, oh, it got lost in the sauce. So my apologies. We'll get back to that in a second. Nonetheless.
By the way,
go ahead.
Brian Peterson, thank you. That was fucking amazing, man. I love the approach. I love the slideshow.
Yep.
I love the comparing it up against the Quintet and Survivor Series. Dead on. He's right. I was like, oh shit, I didn't even think about that. He's right. The Money in the Bank one was low hanging fruit. But what a great job.
I've just never officially called Zach out on it, but he knows I know. Like, it's never been an unsaid thing. I'm like, I'm just trying not to get my boy sued. So,
yeah.
But like the first time it came up, I was like, oh, are you guys calling it SummerSlam? Like, you boo. Nonetheless, he posed a question to us, Tim. And I do want to start by even acknowledging he called himself a chief, blah, 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 social media. Like, he doesn't have a title. Anyway, now that we get to the actual question, Tim, for you, who would do well in a Jiu-Jitsu Royal Rumble?
Because the Royal Rumble is open weight, then you might have a Musamichi go in there and stay in for 15 or 20 guys. He's not going to win. Ultimately, he's going to get tanked. You're looking at the big boys, and I think you're looking at guys like Big Dan would have a real solid shot of being in the last 3 or 4 dudes standing. I think Nick Rodriguez is very athletic, very dynamic, fan favorite, sells a lot of merch. He's got to be in the Final Four. There's no way that he's going to get eliminated before that. And then you might have a couple of oddballs. There's always a couple of guys that you don't quite expect. You might have a guy like AJ Agazarm who he's hanging around. He comes in at number 3 and he's still there at number 28. He's just like a cockroach. You can't get rid of him, man. He's too tough. His defense is too good. Every time you throw him over the rope, he hangs on it and he flips back over. Definitely, I see Big Dan being in there in the end. Maybe a Pixley, maybe a guy like that. I don't think Gordon lasts. I think they gang up on Gordon real early, dump him over the side, and he goes out to dinner and doesn't even stay for the whole event. So that's my take. Big Dan, Nicky Rod.
Nicky Rod is, dabbled in the arts, so he might also have some advantage in knowing where things are or are not. I'm going to be honest with you. A screening tomorrow at the gym for the Royal Rumble, and we're gonna do a fight companion. Somebody goes, why don't you have a Royal Rumble? And I was like, bro, I've been trying to figure that out. And I will say Sean Applegate had come up with the idea of doing a Royal Rumble with a pit, and I don't have a pit on hand, but I think that's the way to do it. And so I'm very pro that idea. You mentioned Big Dan. I think he'd be like the Big Show, where he's like an actual threat that just gets eliminated, where you're like, oh man, he's going to kill somebody. He might eliminate like 4 or 5 people, but then always gets eliminated himself. The last little note I wanted to bring up here, though, is that I think I cracked the code, and I think you can do like BMAC did like a Royal Rumble where everybody was already in and gets submitted out. And I feel like there's a way to do it where they do the walkouts, they have matches, but that as people come in, they're playable characters. Like they're actually able to do it. And I feel like that might be a WWE BJJ concept that I do in the near future. So we'll see how tomorrow goes. But when they were pitching that idea to me, I was like, well, I don't know who's coming tomorrow. We have a competition prep before the actual thing goes down. But I was like, if there's some dumb enough people who are happy to oblige this stupid request I have, then we're in, no questions asked. But nonetheless, very excited. Brian Peterson, thank you for that. Your work continues to be stellar as always. You crazy, crazy human being. It's always funny. Like, I think sometimes the right people end up finding their way to you, even when you're like, oh, let's see what Brian's like. Is he a well-adjusted black belt? Nah, he's crazy too. Okay. Yeah, he's going to get along just fine with us here at the Grappling Hour and the Bullpen. Tim, I think it is time to transition to the fight of the week. You have picked out a doozy for us. What can you tell us about this week's fight of the week, sir?
So I sent you two. I'm not sure which one you landed on.
This one is the pool one, sir.
Okay, so I'll tell you what I can tell you. My dude's got hands, and most people have hands for about 8. Guy, he is the Michael Johnson of throwing hands, man. He can sprint the whole damn way. Never got tired. All you see are dudes dropping, just dropping, and the dude is swinging, and he's swinging so much you can't hit him. It almost looked like a video game to me. It looked like a made up video game kind of a scenario. This kid was not playing. I don't know who ate his hot dog at the pool, but my man was pissed, and he was gonna let his hands do the talking for him.
Well, Tim, with that, and thank you as always for finding these videos for us. I know it is a fool's errand in trying to pick just one fight when there are so many that happen.
I can't tell you, Raf. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you finish. I want to hear what you have to say.
I can't tell you the dark regions of the internet that I have traveled down to find a good fight video. There's so much, but man, there's so many obscure fight video websites that I had everyone knows about World Star and YouTube and all that. There are some real out there ones, man, and those have some really good untapped material.
The unrepairable damage we are doing to your search history is a true mark of your commitment to this show, sir. So nonetheless, I'm going to play it. Let's see how it goes. Why don't you walk us through this fight, sir?
So the fight's about to break out. There's hand one, and now my guy starts swinging, and he never stopped. There's one down. Let's see. Dude runs up. There's another man down. He's like, no, I'm going to stay on the outside. Tank top guy did not rush. There's another dude down. He gets back up, and dude gets off. Oh, look, I like how these guys come running in way at the end. Way at the end. Like, I'm going to see what this is about. See if I can walk him off. I think he dropped 3 or 4 dudes in the span of about 12 seconds with just windmill punches. This guy is generating alternative energy with his arms just swinging. If we could harness that, we could give electricity to the whole state, man.
It's definitely some windmill technology right there. I do want to point this out. I have less about technique because he essentially makes that noise that the Tasmanian devil makes in Warner Brothers cartoons. Whereas, so like, I'll bypass that and get into my real expertise, which is production. First off, when we start this fight, all right, he gets the first hit, and it looks like it has caught that dude by surprise. The dude in glasses next to him was so shocked, he tries to ante up, figuring that dude's not doing anything. Literally goes off and says, like, no, like shuts down like a computer. So he comes in, these guys start to brawl. Here's my production note. Who zooms out? Why are you zooming out when the action is here? What part of the story are we not getting? We get somebody sunbathing here. Is it to introduce a new character toward the end of this? No, you don't know that yet because they don't get out. They gingerly, if anything, make their way out. And now all the good stuff is very far away. And then they see the error of their ways. They start pinching in for that little bit of extra zoom here. And what I want to tell you is you see somebody go down and this camera work is not telling you how they went down. A widescreen version of this would have told the whole story. But let's pause here for the person who was sunbathing, who's now deep in thought as the fight's going on. Like, wow, interesting. As they continue to fight, he then feels the need to get up and involve himself. And dude from the sidelines came in. Now, let's talk some technique. Very small amounts because of the camera work that we can't see it. But nonetheless, we discussed this. I like that you can actually see like the sweat fly off people's faces here. Because that dude hit him and like sonic rings. That water just erupted out. Like bing. So that dude was carrying a lot of water in the hair region. Here, the fighting goes up, shoving. The Tasmanian Devil engaged mode goes. One dude is down. Now the other dude's getting knocked down. There's some intricate, almost John Wick sort of towel work that's happening at the same time that I must acknowledge. But can we talk about the dude in these like light green shorts and the black tank top? Why are you putting arms in front of you crossed and doing nothing? Like, is this dude now realizing, like, I think he's got it on his own. He doesn't need my help. It's like you want to do something, but you don't want to get involved. And I got to tell you, if all of those guys are going down, your odds are pretty good you're not going to get hurt. Nonetheless, he's just chilling. And then guess what? He comes in and says, hey, guys, please. He gets a decent waist lock, so I can give him that much appreciation. But look how easily he removes somebody in the situation. Literally, this dude has no defense for this. This is a dude who, if he was wrestling the fastest anybody has ever seen. Nonetheless, I love the fact that he got carted away like he's an item at a convenience store that you got to lift and take to aisle 4. Nonetheless,
like he moved a plant. Yeah.
Tim, I don't know where you find these. I don't know how. I don't know why. I can just tell you the amount of enjoyment I have is always supremely high. Before we sign out of here, guys, just a couple quick little things that we saw. We'll get to a couple of these comments, and I will acknowledge this. I saw what you guys were putting in there. Egg basically said this: I refuse to watch the Big Dan, etc. debate. Nah, that's how much time Egg does not have. He doesn't even have enough time to write all of their names. Like, most people will just say Big Dan, DeBlass, Greg. Nah, he's like, et al. You know who we're talking about. I'm not watching. And doesn't even just say the debate. He's like, Big Dan and the rest. Egghead is the reason why in the Gilligan's Island theme song, they just say, and the rest. They didn't have time to say the professor or Mary Ann. They're just like, everybody on Gilligan's Island. So there is that. And it said, I really wanted to slip it in, innuendo everywhere. So that one is you, Tim.
You're welcome.
Yeah. It says the rematch league, which honestly, if I'm going to ever steal an idea, the rematch league is the way to go. Like, why call it anything else? Bellator? Yeah, it's the rematch league. And the final comment here that said, it's like Major League back to the minors. Yes. And I will tell you, that is a number of different people over the years have come through this way. There's also one gallery photo that got sent to me, and I need some explanation on this. Tim, what am I looking at here? Like, what is this? You sent this to me as we're doing the show, which always makes me think like you're not given enough stuff to do on the show. What am I looking at, sir?
What you're looking at is the character. I named him Don Janaher, and I competed in the Battle Royal down in Decatur with a neck brace on. That's a real... I don't smoke cigarettes, but I put one in my mouth and I smoked it and I stretched before the show, before the event. And I got to tell you, only about 20%, and I know most of those dudes down in Decatur, about 80% of them did not recognize me. And they were looking at me like, who the fuck is this guy? I also had a bullhorn. I was yelling, and outside it was super loud too.
So you have experience in that format. What can you tell us about somebody who has done that, Tim? How far did you make it?
I made it probably down to like the last 12 or 13. I'll tell you this, it goes fast. I had also brought a Coors Tall Boy that I was planning on cracking open and drinking midway through, like I was taking a break. I never got to it. The whole thing went down in like 3 minutes and it was over. It went fast. I got double teamed by, I believe it was some 10th Planet Atlanta teammates who one came up to me and I was like, no, dog, we could beat other people up right now. We don't gotta like fight each other. Let's just go beat up some rando. Like, let's go. And he just shook his head like, no. And he got on top of me. And we started grappling, and then his homie came up and attacked my legs, And so I started to defend my legs, and the other dude got on my back. And so I had a guy on my back while another guy was simultaneously leg locking me. So I tapped. I had the neck brace on the whole time. I just grappled in it. They were I constantly told people to be careful when they got close to me before. I'm like, careful, like watch out, careful. It was great, man.
I have to say, commitment up the wazoo for that. I watched that video. I remembered, I think B-Mac and I were texting back and forth. I either saw it and said like, hey, or he sent it to me like, I hope he saw this. And I was like, of course. I think I forgot you were involved, but it's mostly because when you show me the photo, I kind of put one and one together again. I was like, oh, that's right. Okay, now I kind of remember it, but I didn't remember how you got eliminated or how far you went. I just know that I appreciate the commitment, but like I said, I feel like you have to do it like true Royal Rumble style where they do get walkouts, because I feel like everybody all at once is, you don't have enough time if you've watched the Traitors or Survivor, but more of the Traitors, to form these alliances. Like, if the whole thing goes in 8 minutes, you got 1 second, if Matt, to really convince someone like, how about this guy?
Yeah.
Let's do it together. And you don't know. On all these survival games, you got to be able to like form an alliance, make arguments, get there. You literally have time to be like, that dude's big and a threat. Let's beat him up. And they have to say, you're right. Or they have to be like, I'm sorry, you're a threat. But I will ask this follow-up question. And this is important to me. I realize it's the only time I get to ask this. Did rolling in the neck brace help? Because it's almost akin to a knee sleeve where you ask people like, oh, does that work for you? Did it work for you, Tim?
It did. It was a little cumbersome, but it made it trickier for people to grab my neck, like to really grab it, because it's like a big piece of foam. And there's kind of like this, everyone should carry a neck brace with them. Everywhere you go, you should bring a neck brace, because as soon as you put that on, people give you space. If you're at a real crowded, you go to a sports game, you need to wear a neck brace. Everyone gets out of the way. People don't bump you. They don't nudge you. They get the fuck out of the way. You're like an ambulance. You're a walking ambulance. When you come walking through the crowd, the C parts, man, like neck brace guy coming through. So I think that had a weird psychological impact on my opponents, where they're like, we saw him smoking. We saw him stretching. We saw him talking in the bullhorn, and he seems kind of crazy, but he might have a real neck injury, and I don't know if I want to crank on this guy's head. The ATL boys didn't give a rat's ass. They came right after it. They saw the brace, and they squeezed it as hard as they could.
Yeah, it checks out. I would say this, Tim. I don't know why I didn't assume you didn't have a neck brace, because it is the most Lionel Hutz of shady things a lawyer can do. You'd be like, Your Honor, I would have been here earlier, but unfortunately, the neck brace has some constraints here. But who amongst us has not had a neck brace hindering them? My client here today has been hindered by the Board of Education, and that is why I'm here to tell you, take off this proverbial neck brace and give him a settlement of no less than $20 million. So
I love it.
Yeah. I will tell you this, because Kevin's not here, so I can give you advice now that we're out of bullpen court. I 100% think you need to do, when we do the commercial break, show back up in the neck brace and see if that doesn't get you sympathy from the court, because
oh yeah, I still got it.
It will 100% throw Kevin off his game, where he'll be like, oh, I didn't know we could bring neck braces, because Kevin, maybe more than you, maybe more than me, for sure more than me, if anybody is the used car salesman lawyer here, it is Kevin Sherrill. So
absolutely
he will level up his game if he sees that you brought this in. He may go the extra mile, and I'm curious to see what that is. Nonetheless, Tim, I think it's time for you to tell the people. Oh, no, I'm so sorry. We actually have 3 comments that you sent to me the other day. Let's put these on real quick, because you guys heard our opinions on the debate. In the gallery, there were people who were commentating and had, if you can believe it, Tim, even more extreme versions of our takes. This first one you found said, I use the much newer extreme ecological approach, in which students don't even know it's a jiu-jitsu class. I just lock 20 random people together in a room and see what happens. Hopefully, they eventually figure it out. Perry BJJ, top tier comment. And the best part was, they had to edit it. So you know that was coming pure out of that brain. That dude basically said, it's all off the top of my dome. I just put out A+ content and then edit it later. Tim, what did this person say from Golden BJJ?
He said, this is absolutely terrible. Crying, laughing emoji, crying, laughing emoji, crying. You got 3 of them. That's serious. 2 hours of Tom, quote, I believe there's room for both of our approaches during class. Greg, quote, you're completely ignorant and that's okay.
You know, it reminds me of, in all the talk of SNL's 50-year anniversary coming up very soon, it reminds me of one of the episodes where I did a throwaway joke to Tim, and I wasn't sure how it would go, but I go, Tim, you ignorant slut. And I didn't pass that by you, but I just knew you know what to do with it when I did do it. I felt like that was the long version of, oh, Tom, you ignorant slut. Like, that's what we're getting here, people. That kind of stuff. This final comment coming to us from Max Appalachia, who says, would have been more productive to just drill for 2 hours than listen to this guy try to use big words. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I don't think that's wrong. I would tell you this, our last thought on the debate, just for right now. I can appreciate a larger discussion on these themes. And I did very earlier mention this, but I really do think it's coming to the point where everybody likes their stuff so much. There's an education part that has to happen first. I think that we have to actually do interviews with these guys based off of the comments that we heard from the debate. And in order to make it actual, something to take away from, like an actual conversation, I think we have to ask them these hard questions. So I would welcome Greg and I would ask him these questions. And I'm not afraid to even say like, hey, Greg, you know, it does seem like you come off a little bit, not even condescending is the right word perhaps, but I don't know if your words are matching your intentions on what you're meaning, because the internet is dismissing your point because of the tone and the way you're communicating it. And I don't know if that would be received well, but I feel like it's an important thing to highlight, because anytime the message is getting dismayed by the communication, I think it's worth a discussion. And for me, I'm like, dude, I think there's some valuable things in ecological studies and approaches. It's still questionable on how well it works at a huge competitive level, which I think is the crux of Dan and Tom DeBlas's argument. But nonetheless, why are these people gravitating to it? And are they finding success? And for the love of God, can we just dismiss Kit Dale? Because Kit Dale literally shows up. If you say it 3 times, if you say drilling 3 times, Kit Dale shows up. That's exactly what happens. He's just consistent. He shows up just to let you know, how else did I get my stuff in 4 years? I'm like, I don't know, Kit, you're super fucking strong too. Shit just worked for you. But I know I'm not Kit Dale. I just have always appreciated, like, that worked for you. Great. Awesome. I'm a guy that needs drilling to get a little bit of the concept. And then I like to play games. And then I like to give my students freedom to either drill if they're wrestlers and stay in that world, because that's what they know. But I also welcome them to be like, hey, we're going to do this, because my main takeaway as an instructor over the years is not every student has the same way to learn. And I feel like it's the same thing for instructors, because not every instructor teaches the same way. They have also very different learning capabilities and ways that they do things. So I feel like we always go at the student like, oh, students learn differently. It's like, well, teachers teach differently. So at certain points, it's a matter of hopefully you get with the right teaching and style that you like. There's just a lot of question marks. So anyway, that's my little note on it. Tim, would you like to tell the people where they can find you, sir?
Yes, sir. You can find me on your favorite social media platform, Inside BJJ. If you're out in Nashville, come see us at 10th Planet Nashville. And if you're out in Stockton, go see my partners out at 10th Planet Stockton. It's great, Raf. I love doing this show. It's been a great week. Hopefully we have some exciting stuff happen over the next couple weeks that we can bring to the show and talk about, man.
Appreciate you, man. I mean, listen, dude. nobody salivated more at the idea of coming on the show and doing a silly set of conversational things about a debate than this group of people. But I think it's because we have been doing this for such a long time that we've seen people have arguments before. This one gathered a lot of steam. We had feelings on it. And at our core, I think we're people who always go, I just wish it was a little better. Maybe this could have done this, or this could have done this. So at anything, maybe next time we get to moderate it, or we get a friend of ours who's really good at this to moderate it. But yeah, until next time, though. Tim, thank you so much, sir. I appreciate you. I hope all is well. I'm going to go ahead and close this off. But to everybody watching, thank you so much for tuning into this week's installment of The Bullpen, a joint venture between the Grappling Hour and Inside BJJ. Yes, we have had a long discussion on all things about the debate, the PFL, GFL, PGF, GFC, NNC, like whatever these things are. We're literally, if it's got an acronym, we're probably talking about it. But I hope that you guys enjoyed this week's episode, and be sure to follow us. We'll be back next Friday with another installment of The Bullpen. Follow me over at the Grappling Hour on all major social media platforms. And yes, check me out tomorrow. I'll be doing a live fight companion for the Royal Rumble. We're going to be doing that out of Mama. So lots of fun there. In the meantime, friends, thank you again so much for watching along with us today. We appreciate you guys. We'll see you very, very soon. It has been a great day for grappling.